So I had a chance over the weekend to see Ballerina from the world of John Wick, directed by Len Wiseman, the man behind the Underworld series, or one of the Underworld films, Die Hard 4, and the Total Recall remake, starring Ana de Armas, hopefully I got that correctly, and some faces that we've seen from the previous John Wick films, from Ian McShane, Angelica Houston, Lance Reddick, who has since passed on, and a new face in Norman Reedus, who has a small but crucial part. In the timeline of events, it takes place in between chapters 3 and 4 of John Wick. Eve Macaro experiences a tragic loss at a young age, and from that day forward, she's determined to get her revenge. As everybody has talked about, Keanu Reeves does make an appearance in here, but we'll get to that. For anyone who's not educated in this series, along with my channel, John Wick is a very well-established action franchise among the likes of Die Hard, Mad Max, Terminator, and various other action films that I can name off the bat. Mostly known for its insane fight scenes and fight choreography, since it's directed by two stuntmen who were veterans of action films and had worked with Keanu Reeves previously, if I'm remembering correctly. It took me about 10 years to finally get into the John Wick series. I avoided it like the plague for so long because I thought it looked really cheesy and dumb, and when they purported the notion of them killing a dog, I am very sensitive about that kind of stuff. I'm a dog person, so even when I watched it a couple of years back for the first time, I skipped right through that part because I just couldn't stomach it. But as I got caught up on the series as the fourth one was coming out at the time, I was instantly won over, and I was really impressed with its quality. So when they announced a spin-off called Ballerina, and I saw the trailer for it a couple months back, and they showed Keanu Reeves in the previews, it threw me off guard because I wasn't really following any news on it. But then I looked it up and saw that it takes place in between 3 and 4, so I thought, okay, I guess you have to come up with some excuse to bring it back. At least put it in the immediate timeline of events. Doing a spin-off is very tricky, especially when you're riding the coattails of a well-established franchise like John Wick. If you're gonna make an entry that takes place in that universe, you gotta be impressive. But the way the films had gone on over the last decade, there was some world-building stuff that people gravitated towards. The underworld stuff, the organized crime elements of everything, even if sometimes it was a little too hokey and broke the limits of believability for me, like the ending of John Wick 2. I won't give it away in case anybody doesn't know, but if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know. Some of that does carry over in this movie, although it's in a remote area at the climax, so I think in that regard it's much more excusable. But with this being a spin-off to John Wick, I wasn't really sure about how this was going to go, and I heard some positive reviews, and I thought it was going to be just maybe a modicum film at best, maybe just some modest type of quality. But with Len Wiseman behind the camera, and I think Chad Stahelski, who had a hand in the previous John Wick films, had some sort of hand in this too, but there were some reshoots that happened and some production problems that occurred, so Len Wiseman had to take the final directing credit. I've only seen the fourth Die Hard by him. I haven't seen the other stuff that he's done, but from what I saw of him doing that movie, I think he has a certain capability to him that most people don't really give him credit for. Whatever you think about Die Hard 4, it had a lot of really good practical in-camera stunt work. Some visual effects, yes, but it all felt seamlessly correct. Walking out of it, I'm very happy to report that it was a good time, and almost comes really close to the quality of the original series. I might go into some spoilers, but I'll do my best to keep that to a minimum in case you don't know. Ana de Armas is Eve Macaro, who's a young girl who's wronged by this cult that kills her father, who I believe worked for the cult at one point in time but wanted a new life for himself. But inevitably, like with John Wick, his past eventually catches up to him, and he has to pay the ultimate price to give his own life to protect his daughter. And that's a moment that scars Eve for the rest of her life, and she's taken in by Ian McShane's character, Winston Scott, who hands her over to the Roscoe Roma, the theater which operates as a front for ballerina lessons, which is run by Angelica Houston's character from the second film, and it's a secret society of sorts that teaches the ballerina dancers and how to be proper fighters whenever they have to go out in various jobs. So she spends the next several years of her life training to be an assassin, but her desire for revenge kicks in when she sees a guy out in the field who has a similar scar of the people that killed her father. And despite endless warnings of not to mess with this cult, she's so narrow-minded in her goals that she can't drop it. And from that point on, we have what we'd expect to see in a movie set in the John Wick series. I wasn't really sure what to think of Ana de Armas going into this. I remember seeing her in No Time to Die some years back. It's a small part. I think she was a Bond girl. I barely remember her in that movie. But I'm really pleased to say that she manages to hold herself together just fine in all the scenes that are required for her. Small dramatic moments, the action, she delivers that firing on all cylinders as far as I'm concerned. Obviously she's not Keanu Reeves, but she's not trying to be. And rather than taking the all-powerful female approach that some other action movies might take, she starts off in the movie struggling to navigate certain situations, but gradually she gets much better as it goes on. When she utilizes certain supplies or weapons against her opponents that come across her, going into that side of things. Just when you thought that a movie in the John Wick series couldn't get any crazier with the ways to kill an opponent, this one manages to deliver that in spades, particularly with duct tape, a huge plethora of grenades. Yeah.
Impressive. Most impressive.
Now, the John Wick series isn't exactly known for its deep characterization, although there are moments that are sprinkled throughout each film to give us some reason to root for our protagonists. While I understand Eve's motivation because of her father's death, I don't think it had the same emotional oomph that John Wick had when he lost his dog, because it was a gift from his wife, and it was the only thing of her that he had left. And that's really the thing to note about this movie. It starts off somewhat standard and kind of rocky. Then I would say half an hour in, the movie really starts to find its own footing. Gabriel Byrne as the Chancellor is a very hammy type of villain. For this situation, I think that character's the perfect fit. He's really just that kind of villain that you want to see experience some sort of downfall at the hands of Eve. As far as the returning faces with Lance Reddick and Ian McShane, they don't really have that big of a part in the overall film, because mostly this is going to be its own thing, obviously. They all play their parts just as great as they did before. But Norman Reedus I was really interested in seeing, and I kind of wish that we saw more of him throughout the movie. If I remember correctly, I think his character is the son of the Chancellor, and then his daughter is kidnapped by the cult and taken against her will. There's also another thing that comes up that I wish they spent a little more time on. There's a certain thing involving her one sister that disappeared, and I won't go into too much detail, but it pops up again just when you think it might actually get to give us some sort of emotional heft. It ends pretty abruptly. Not a deal breaker for me in that regard, but I kind of wish they gave us more time with that. As far as the direction from Len Wiseman, I think he manages to not only put his own stamp on this series, but honor what came before. He has a way of integrating in-camera action and certain stunts that other movies wouldn't bother to go with. Even if Chad Stahelski had some sort of hand in this, it's really hard for me to tell. I wouldn't have had a problem with it if he was the main director behind this, but I think Len Wiseman deserves all the credit that he should get with this one, and I think he's actually kind of an underrated filmmaker. Okay, maybe his filmography, if you were going to look at it, it's not exactly anything to brag about, but I could easily see this guy if he was paired up with the right people, the right screenwriters or whatever. We might actually get something truly special from him. Whether or not that's destined for him in the long run, that remains to be seen. We can also tell in the fight scenes what's happening, even if it's a little shaky in certain areas. It never once uses the quick cut editing to cover up cheap stunt work. It actually feels in the right way, an extension of the John Wick series. As far as the return of Keanu Reeves, with his limited screen time, he manages to deliver exactly what it needs. But in a way, he does serve as a mentor for her, to tell her, this is what happens if you do this or don't do this. I guess mild spoiler warning if you're really sensitive to that, we do get another action sequence with him in the finale. You can't really pass up the opportunity if you have Keanu Reeves back in your wheelhouse again. And given that this takes place right before the events of Chapter 4, why not make the most of this opportunity while you have it? Where exactly does this fall in the exact timeline of events between 3 and 4? It's not really clear, but even then, I don't really care. Because we at least got to see John Wick at least one more time. And whether or not he does return for John Wick 5, if they try to give some excuse as to what happens to him at the end of number 4, I don't really know, but we'll see what happens. And just about everything else I could cover, from the production design, the aesthetic, the musical score, fits in just fine with the rest of the series. As far as the way the movie ends, there are no mid-credits or post-credit scenes, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's some sort of sequel to follow up on this one. And if it gives us an excuse to delve deeper into the world of John Wick, bring it on. Me and other people who are into this franchise would not complain about that at all, unless you want to be really cynical and say you're just milking it for money or whatever. If you have the right people behind it, what does it matter? I'd say there's a good chance of you getting a kick out of this one if you're a John Wick fan. If you're very critical of it, you may or may not be disappointed with it, but odds are, you're probably going to like this one. And just like with the other entries in the series, just when you think it might start to get a little boring, you're about 5 seconds away from the craziest action fight scene that you've ever laid eyes on. That's all I got for you guys on Ballerina. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it. Hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more. And as always, see you in the next one.